Most religions say, our way is the only way. But Buddhism? It does something so revolutionary it shocked the ancient world, and might just be what we need today. A viewer recently asked, Matt, I love Buddhism's ideas, but I don't want to give up my Christian faith. Well, you're about to discover why that's not just okay. It's exactly how Buddhism changed the world. If you saw our previous video when I told you Buddhists don't believe in God, you learned that Buddhism takes a unique approach to spirituality. But what you might not know is how radical this really was. Picture this. You're living in a time when every religion threatens, follow us or face divine punishment. Everyone's fighting over who has the one true God. Then this guy shows up and says, keep your gods. Just try these practices and see if they work. That was Buddha, and religious leaders thought he was insane. His approach was so revolutionary, it transformed how people thought about religion forever. Here's what makes this story wild. While other religions built walls, Buddhism built bridges. In ancient China, Buddhist teachers looked at local traditions and said, your beliefs about harmony with nature? Perfect. Let us show you how meditation can deepen that experience. In Japan, they created temples where people could honor both Buddhist and Shinto traditions in the same building. Even today, you can watch someone bow to Shinto gods, then ring a Buddhist bell, all under one roof. But the really mind-blowing part, this wasn't just clever marketing. Buddha's approach unlocked something powerful about human spirituality that modern scientists are just beginning to understand. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how it worked, and more importantly, why it matters for our world today. Imagine ancient India, a spiritual laboratory where hundreds of different beliefs competed for followers. You had the Vedic priests performing elaborate fire rituals, the Jains practicing extreme self-denial, and countless philosophers debating the nature of the soul. This was the world Buddha was born into. As a prince, he saw all these traditions claiming to have exclusive access to truth. Some said you needed complex rituals to please the gods. Others insisted you had to punish your body to free your spirit. Each group declared their way was the only path to salvation. But Buddha noticed something fascinating. Despite all their different practices, people were still suffering, still struggling, still searching for answers. The priests were unhappy even with their elaborate rituals. The ascetics were miserable despite their extreme practices. And regular people? They were caught in the middle, confused and afraid of choosing the wrong path. Think about how intense this was. Imagine living in a society where picking the wrong god could ruin not just your life, but your family's lives for generations. Where changing your religion could get you kicked out of your community. Where spiritual teachers spent more time attacking other beliefs than actually helping people. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Instead of adding another voice to this religious shouting match, Buddha did something completely different. When a group of priests came to challenge his teachings one day, they got the shock of their lives. These priests arrived ready for the usual religious debate. You know, the whole my God is better than your God argument. They had their sacred texts memorized, their philosophical arguments polished. They were prepared to defend their beliefs to the death. But Buddha's response? It changed everything. Instead of attacking their beliefs, instead of claiming superior knowledge, he asked them a simple question that would revolutionize how humans think about religion. But before I tell you what that question was, you need to understand why other religions took such a different approach. Picture the ancient world. A place where religions weren't just beliefs, they were survival strategies. In many places it was simple: convert or die. This wasn't just happening in India. This was a global reality. Think about the early Christians hiding in dark Roman catacombs, Jewish communities forced to flee from one land to another, Muslims facing persecution in Mecca. When your entire community faces extinction, being open to other faiths isn't just difficult, it's dangerous. For many religions, exclusivity wasn't just belief, it was survival. But that's not all. Most religions were deeply tied to kingdoms and empires. Take ancient Egypt. Pharaohs didn't just lead religion, they claimed to be gods. In Rome, emperors demanded worship as living deities. Even today, some countries base their entire authority on being defenders of their faith. So what happens when your power comes from being the one true religion? Accepting other faiths becomes like accepting rival kings. It's not just about belief anymore. It's about survival, power, and control. And here's the biggest challenge. Most religions start with prophets or divine revelations. Moses receiving the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Muhammad receiving the Quran in a cave. Jesus teaching as the Son of God. If you truly believe you've received the final word from the divine, how can you say other paths are equally valid? That's what made Buddhism so different. Buddha wasn't claiming to be a god or a prophet. He was more like a scientist saying, "Here's what I discovered through meditation. Try it yourself and see if it works." He didn't need to defend his power because he wasn't seeking it. He didn't need to claim exclusive truth because his teachings were about practical results, not divine authority. And this difference, it was about to change everything about how Buddhism would interact with other faiths. Remember those priests I mentioned who came to challenge Buddha? His response to them reveals the genius of his approach. So what made Buddha's approach so different? Well, it all came down to a genius strategy that no one had tried before. Remember those priests who came ready for a debate, instead of arguing about gods and rituals? Buddha asked them one simple question. Has following your practices actually ended your suffering? The priests were stunned. No religious teacher had ever shifted the conversation from beliefs to results. But here's where it gets really interesting. When the priests admitted they were still struggling, Buddha didn't mock them or dismiss their practices. Instead, he said something revolutionary. Keep your rituals if they help you, but let me show you some additional tools that might make them work better. Let me show you how brilliant this was in action. There's this famous story about a group of fire worshippers. These guys were convinced that ritual fire ceremonies were the only way to reach salvation. They came to challenge Buddha, probably expecting him to dismiss their practices. But instead, Buddha said something fascinating. Your sacred fire rituals? Keep them, but let me show you another kind of inner fire you can cultivate. Buddha explained that anger is like a fire that burns us. Greed is like a fire that consumes us. And meditation is like learning to be a master of these inner fires. The fire worshippers were shocked. Nobody had ever connected with their beliefs this way. Think about what Buddha did there. Instead of saying your religion is wrong, he said, here's how to go deeper into what you already believe. That's like a martial arts master saying, keep your fighting style. Let me just teach you some new moves to make it stronger. Buddha was offering tools, not dogmas. He didn't challenge faiths, he enhanced them. But the real genius of this approach, it was about to create something unprecedented in religious history. And what happened next would change the spiritual landscape forever. Remember what I said about Buddhism spreading without forcing anyone to convert? Well, here's where we see how brilliantly it worked. When Buddhism first reached China, something incredible happened. Instead of trying to replace Chinese traditions like Taoism and Confucianism, Buddhist teachers did something revolutionary. They said, hey, you know your concept of the Tao? Well, let us show you how Buddhist meditation can help you experience it more deeply. This was mind-blowing for the Chinese. Here was a foreign religion that didn't want to destroy their culture, but actually made their existing traditions stronger. No wonder Buddhism spread like wildfire across Asia. And everywhere Buddhism went, it sparked innovation. When it met Greek culture in ancient Gandhara, it created the first ever Buddha statues, inspired by Apollo's image. When it reached Tibet, it blended with local shamanic practices to create something entirely new. Each encounter didn't dilute Buddhism, it made it richer. Look at Japan. If you visit Japanese temples today, you'll see something amazing. Many temples are both Buddhist and Shinto. Same building, two religions, zero conflict. It's like having a spiritual smoothie that actually tastes better than its individual ingredients. You can literally watch someone clap their hands to honor Shinto gods, ring a Buddhist bell, and nobody bats an eye. This isn't some modern innovation. It's been happening for over 1,000 years. And this success continues today. In Silicon Valley, tech companies are using Buddhist mindfulness to improve work culture. In hospitals worldwide, Buddhist meditation techniques are helping patients manage pain. Even the US Marines are learning Buddhist-inspired mindfulness for better focus and stress management. The impact is everywhere. Christian contemplatives are finding that Buddhist meditation deepens their prayer life. Muslim scholars are discovering parallels between Buddhist mindfulness and Islamic presence practices. Jewish meditation centers are incorporating Buddhist techniques while staying true to their traditions. But the biggest proof of Buddha's genius? Emperor Ashoka of India. After converting to Buddhism, he did something unheard of. He built temples and monuments for all religions in his empire, not just Buddhism. All of them. In the 3rd century BCE, while other parts of the world were fighting religious wars, this Buddhist emperor was history's first champion of religious freedom. Think about how revolutionary this was. While others were saying, "My way or the highway," Buddhism was saying, "All paths can lead to truth." But this raises a huge question. If this approach worked so well, what's the secret behind it? So what's the secret behind Buddhism's unique approach? Why could Buddhism do what other religions found so hard? It comes down to 3 brilliant insights that Buddha had. First, he realized that fighting over beliefs is like arguing about different paths up a mountain. It doesn't matter which path you take if they all lead to the top. What matters is whether you're actually climbing. Second, Buddha understood something that modern psychology is just catching up to. When you force people to choose between beliefs, they resist. But when you give them tools to explore their own path, they naturally grow. It's like the difference between being forced to eat your vegetables and discovering they actually taste good. And third, this is the really clever part. Buddha taught that truth isn't something you believe. It's something you experience. It's like the difference between reading about honey and tasting it. You can argue about honey all day, but once you taste it, there's nothing to debate. These aren't just ancient principles. They're solutions for today's world. Take Sarah, a Christian meditation teacher in Texas. She discovered that Buddhist mindfulness actually helped her understand Jesus' teachings about being present in a whole new way. Or Muhammad, a Muslim student who found that Buddhist compassion practices deepened his understanding of Islamic mercy. Let me give you 3 powerful ways to apply this Buddhist approach in your own life. First, focus on practices, not beliefs. Instead of debating whose God is right, ask, what helps reduce suffering? Second, look for common ground. Just as Buddha showed fire worshippers a deeper meaning of inner fire, we can find shared values across different faiths. And third, validate through experience. Don't just accept or reject ideas. Test them in your own life. Think about it. In our modern world, where religious tensions are everywhere, Buddha's approach offers something precious. It shows us that we don't have to tear down someone else's beliefs to strengthen our own, that sometimes the best way to deepen your faith is to learn from others. What if more people approached differences this way? What if instead of arguing about who's right, we shared what works? The wisdom that allowed Buddhism to spread peacefully across Asia might be exactly what our divided world needs today. Let's wrap this up with something amazing. Remember that viewer comment from the start? The one worried about mixing Buddhism with their faith? Well, now you know why Buddhism might be the only religion that says, keep your faith. Just try these tools. You've discovered how Buddha changed the game 2,500 years ago by focusing on practical solutions instead of forcing beliefs. How this approach helped Buddhism spread peacefully across Asia, and why ancient temples still show us the proof today. But most importantly, you've learned that respecting different paths while walking your own isn't just possible, it's powerful. That's what made Buddhism different then, and that's what makes its message so valuable today. Here's a challenge for you this week. Have a conversation with someone from a different faith tradition. But instead of focusing on differences, ask them what practices help them find peace or meaning. You might be surprised by what you discover. And who knows, you might even find new tools for your own spiritual journey. If you found this perspective mind-blowing, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Buddha's Wisdom for more videos that'll change how you see the world. Let me know in the comments, what surprised you most about Buddhism's approach to other religions? Have you ever combined practices from different traditions? How did it work for you? Stay curious, stay wise, and I'll see you in the next video.